In a bustling city, there lived a woman named Eliza. She was an ordinary girl, but her school life was far from ordinary. Eliza attended an exclusive private school where the students came from wealthy families. They wore designer clothes, carried expensive gadgets, and flaunted their privileged lives. Eliza, on the other hand, came from a modest background. Her parents worked hard to provide for her, but they couldn't afford the luxuries her classmates enjoyed. Eliza felt like an outsider, always on the fringes of the glittering world around her. One day, during lunchtime, Eliza overheard a conversation among her classmates. They were discussing their upcoming summer vacations, exotic trips to tropical islands, ski resorts, and shopping sprees in Paris. Eliza listened, her heart sinking. She had never been on a vacation beyond the neighboring town. That evening, Eliza made a decision. She would no longer be the girl who stood on the sidelines. She would become someone else, a girl who belonged to the world of wealth and privilege. And she began her transformation. Eliza started by borrowing her cousin's designer clothes. She wore oversized sunglasses, even indoors, and carried a faux leather handbag. She practiced her walk, trying to mimic the confident strides of her classmates. When she spoke, she dropped names of fancy restaurants and exclusive clubs she had never visited. Her classmates noticed the change. They raised their eyebrows when Eliza walked into the school cafeteria, her hair perfectly styled, and her nails painted a shade of crimson that screamed sophistication. They whispered, "Who is she trying to fool?" But Eliza didn't care. She had a role to play, the role of the fake rich woman. Eliza's ego grew with each passing day. She ignored her old friends, the ones who knew the real Eliza. She surrounded herself with the popular crowd, attending parties and events she had no business being at. She even invented a fictional summer vacation, a glamorous trip to the French Riviera. As Eliza's pretense continued, she became adept at dodging questions. When someone asked about her family's yacht, she'd laugh and say it was being renovated. When they inquired about her winter chalet in Aspen, she'd casually mention that it was rented out to a celebrity. But deep down, Eliza felt a gnawing emptiness. She missed her old life, the simplicity, the genuine friendships, and the warmth of her family. She wondered if the fake persona was worth sacrificing her authenticity. One day, during a lavish party at a mansion, Eliza stood on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. Mr. Harrison, a wealthy businessman, approached her. He had seen through her act. "Eliza," he said, "you don't need to pretend. Your true self is far more captivating than any illusion." Eliza blinked back tears. "Why does everyone care about wealth and status?" she whispered. Mr. Harrison smiled. "Because they're chasing shadows. But you, my dear, have the chance to step into the light." And Eliza made her choice. She shed the borrowed clothes, wiped off the crimson nail polish, and returned to her old friends. She apologized for her arrogance and embraced her true identity, the girl who didn't need to pretend. From that day on, Eliza learned that authenticity was the greatest luxury of all. And as she walked through life, she held her head high, not as a fake rich woman, but as someone who had discovered the real treasures hidden within. Eliza's return to her true self was not an easy journey. The city buzzed with rumors about the sudden change in the woman who once dazzled everyone with her faux affluence. Her classmates were confused, some felt betrayed, and others were curious about the real Eliza. But Eliza was determined to make amends. She reached out to her old friends, the ones she had ignored during her days of pretense. To her surprise, they welcomed her back with open arms, forgiving her past arrogance and embracing her honesty. As Eliza reconnected with her roots, she found a new sense of purpose. She started a blog, sharing her experiences and the lessons she learned about the value of authenticity. Her words touched many hearts, and soon, she had a following of people who admired her courage to embrace her true identity. Meanwhile, at school, the wealthy students who once mocked her began to see Eliza in a new light. They realized that wealth was not just about money but also about character. Eliza's transformation inspired some of them to volunteer at local charities and to be more inclusive. Eliza's blog gained attention from the media, and she was invited to speak at conferences about the pressures of societal expectations. She spoke eloquently about the importance of being true to oneself, regardless of external pressures to conform. One day, a young girl approached Eliza after a talk. "Your story changed my life," the girl said. "I used to pretend to be someone I'm not, just to fit in. But now, I'm proud of who I am, thanks to you." Eliza smiled, her heart swelling with joy. She had turned her past mistakes into a beacon of hope for others. And as she continued to share her journey, she became known not as the fake rich woman, but as a real inspiration. Eliza's influence grew beyond the city. Her blog became a platform for people to share their own stories of overcoming the pressure to fit in. It became a community where authenticity was celebrated, and pretense was left at the door. In the midst of her newfound fame, Eliza remained grounded. She often visited her parents' home, where she'd sit in the kitchen, sipping tea and reminiscing about old times. Her parents were proud of her, not because of the recognition she received, but because she had found her way back to herself. Back at school, Eliza's presence was a constant reminder that it's okay to be different. She started a club called the Authenticity Circle, where students met to discuss their dreams, fears, and aspirations without judgment. One evening, as the club gathered, a shy boy named Liam spoke up. "I've always been afraid to show my love for painting. I thought it wasn't cool enough," he admitted. Eliza encouraged him to bring his paintings to the next meeting. When Liam unveiled his artwork, the students were in awe. His paintings were vibrant and full of emotion. The Authenticity Circle became a sanctuary for hidden talents and true passions. Eliza's story reached the ears of a renowned philanthropist, Mrs. Whitmore, who was moved by Eliza's mission. She offered to sponsor a scholarship in Eliza's name for students who demonstrated the courage to be themselves. As the scholarship program launched, Eliza felt a sense of accomplishment. She had turned her past into a catalyst for change, helping others to embrace their uniqueness. But Eliza's journey was far from over. She had more to do, more lives to touch, and more of her own story to write. She knew that the road ahead would have its challenges, but she was ready to face them with an open heart and an authentic spirit. Eliza's blog gained even more followers, and she received invitations to speak at universities and conferences across the country. She traveled from city to city, sharing her story and encouraging others to embrace their authenticity. One chilly evening, after a particularly moving talk, Eliza found herself sitting alone in a cozy cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her, and she stared out the window, lost in thought. A stranger approached her table, a woman with silver hair and kind eyes. "Eliza," she said, "I've been following your journey. Your courage is inspiring." Eliza smiled. "Thank you, but sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough." The woman sat down across from her. "Eliza, authenticity isn't about doing enough. It's about being true to yourself. And sometimes that means facing your deepest fears." Eliza leaned forward. "What do you mean?" The woman's gaze held a hint of mystery. "Have you ever wondered why you felt the need to pretend in the first place?" Eliza hesitated. "I suppose I wanted acceptance. To fit in." The woman nodded. "But acceptance from whom? Others or yourself?" Eliza's heart raced. "Both, I guess." "Eliza," the woman said, "there's a hidden treasure within you, the real Eliza. And it's time to uncover it." Eliza listened intently as the woman shared her own story, a tale of lost dreams and second chances. She spoke of a forgotten passion, the violin, and how she had once played in grand concert halls. But life's demands had led her away from music. "Eliza," the woman said, "I want you to find your violin. Not a literal one, but the metaphorical instrument that resonates with your soul." Eliza blinked back tears. "But what if I don't know what it is?" "Then explore," the woman replied. "Visit places you've never been, try activities you've never considered. Listen to your heart." And Eliza embarked on a new quest. She traveled to remote villages, hiked through forests, and danced under starlit skies. She met people who lived authentically, the fisherman who sang sea shanties, the elderly painter who captured sunsets on canvas, the young girl who wrote poetry in secret. One day, while wandering through a bustling market, Eliza heard a familiar sound, the sweet strains of a violin. She followed the music to a street performer, a weathered man with calloused fingers. His eyes sparkled as he played, lost in the melody. Eliza approached him. "May I listen?" The man nodded, and Eliza closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her. It was as if the violin spoke to her soul, unlocking memories she had buried deep within. When the last note faded, Eliza opened her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. The man smiled. "Remember, Eliza, authenticity isn't just about being true to others. It's about being true to yourself." And Eliza carried the violin's melody with her. She returned home, not as the fake rich woman or the inspirational speaker, but as someone who had found her own song, the one that resonated with her heart. Eliza's newfound connection to the violin changed her perspective. She no longer sought validation from others or pretended to be someone she wasn't. Instead, she embraced her uniqueness, the notes that made up her own melody. As Eliza delved deeper into her passion for music, she discovered a small community orchestra. They welcomed her with open arms, and soon, she was playing the violin alongside seasoned musicians. The instrument became an extension of herself, a bridge between her past and present. One evening, during a rehearsal, Eliza noticed a young girl sitting in the back row. The girl's eyes sparkled with curiosity, and Eliza recognized the same longing she had felt, the desire to belong, to express herself. After practice, Eliza approached the girl. "Hi, I'm Eliza. I noticed you watching." The girl blushed. "I'm Lily. I've always wanted to play the violin, but my family can't afford lessons." Eliza smiled. "Lily, music isn't about expensive instruments or fancy lessons. It's about feeling the vibrations in your heart." She offered to teach Lily the basics, and soon, they met regularly in a quiet corner of the park. Eliza shared her love for the violin, and Lily listened with wide-eyed wonder. As the seasons changed, so did Lily's skill. She played with determination, her fingers dancing across the strings. Eliza watched, proud of the girl's progress. One day, Lily handed Eliza a small envelope. "It's an invitation," she said. "Our community orchestra is performing at the town hall. Will you play with us?" Eliza hesitated. She hadn't played in public since her school days, the days of pretending to be someone else. But then she remembered Mr. Harrison's words, "Your true self is far more captivating than any illusion." And so, on the night of the performance, Eliza stood backstage, her violin cradled in her arms. The audience murmured, waiting for the show to begin. Lily stood beside her, nerves and excitement missing. Eliza stepped onto the stage, her heart racing. The spotlight illuminated her violin, its polished wood gleaming. Lily stood beside her, her eyes wide with anticipation. As the orchestra began to play, Eliza closed her eyes. The familiar notes enveloped her, the rise and fall, the ebb and flow. She felt the vibrations in her fingertips, connecting her to something greater than herself. The audience listened, captivated by the music. Eliza's fingers moved with precision, pouring her soul into each stroke. She no longer cared about the borrowed clothes or the fake persona she had once worn. All that mattered was the melody, the one that had been waiting to escape. And then, it happened. Eliza's violin sang, a hauntingly beautiful tune that echoed through the hall. Tears welled in her eyes as she played, memories flooding back, the school talent show, the judgmental glances, and the ache of pretending. But this time, Eliza played for herself. She played for Lily, for Mr. Harrison, for every person who had ever felt the need to hide their true selves. The music swirled around her, lifting her higher, until she was no longer Eliza the fake rich woman, but Eliza the authentic soul. When the final note hung in the air, the audience erupted in applause. Eliza opened her eyes, her vision blurred. Lily hugged her, and Eliza whispered, "Thank you." As Eliza stepped off the stage, she knew she had found her purpose. The violin wasn't just an instrument, it was her voice, the one that spoke her truth. From that day forward, Eliza continued to play. She performed in parks, hospitals, and community centers. She taught Lily and other aspiring musicians, passing on the gift of authenticity. And as she played, Eliza realized that wealth wasn't about money or status. It was about the richness of the human experience, the connections we make, the passions we pursue, and the courage to be ourselves. Eliza's violin became her constant companion. She played during quiet mornings, under the moon's silver glow, and even during thunderstorms when lightning danced across the sky. Each note was a brushstroke on the canvas of her life, a testament to her newfound authenticity. One day, while practicing in the park, Eliza noticed an elderly man sitting on a bench. His eyes were closed, and he swayed gently to the music. Eliza recognized him as Mr. Harrison, the same man who had seen through her pretense all those years ago. She approached him. "Mr. Harrison," she said, "do you remember me?" He opened his eyes, a smile tugging at his lips. "Eliza," he said, "how could I forget? You've come a long way." Eliza sat beside him. "Thank you," she said. "Your words changed my life." Mr. Harrison chuckled. "It wasn't my words, my dear. It was your willingness to listen, to hear the music within." Eliza nodded. "But there's more to my story. Lily, the girl I taught to play, she's blossoming into an incredible violinist." Mr. Harrison's eyes twinkled. "Ah, the circle of inspiration. You've passed the torch." Eliza leaned her violin against the bench. "And now," she said, "I want to create something bigger. A community orchestra where everyone, regardless of background, can play." Mr. Harrison patted her hand. "Eliza, that's a beautiful dream. But remember, dreams need more than notes. They need people who believe." And Eliza set out to gather musicians. She visited retirement homes, schools, and community centers. She found a retired cellist, a young flutist, and a drummer who had once played in a rock band. They all shared one thing: a love for music that transcended labels. The orchestra began to rehearse, their melodies blending into a harmonious whole. Eliza stood at the conductor's podium, her heart swelling. The stage was no longer about her, it was about the collective magic they created. The night of the performance arrived. The town hall was packed, and Eliza's hands trembled as she raised her baton. The orchestra played, the violin, the cello, the flute, and the drums, all weaving together in a symphony of authenticity. As the final note hung in the air, the audience rose to their feet. Eliza looked out, her eyes meeting Lily's. The girl who had once watched from the back row was now a soloist, her violin singing with passion. After the applause died down, Eliza stepped forward. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "This orchestra isn't about perfection. It's about courage. The courage to be ourselves, to create, and to connect." And in that moment, Eliza knew she had found her true wealth, the wealth of shared dreams, shared melodies, and shared humanity. Eliza's community orchestra became a beacon of hope and unity in the city. The musicians came from all walks of life, each with their own story, their own struggles, and their own dreams. Together, they created a tapestry of sound that resonated with the heartbeat of the community. As the orchestra's fame spread, more people joined, eager to be part of something special. Eliza found herself not just as a conductor or a teacher, but as a friend and confidant. She listened to their stories, shared in their joys, and comforted them in their sorrows. One day, a letter arrived for Eliza. It was an invitation to bring her orchestra to perform at a prestigious music festival. The event would gather the finest musicians from around the globe, and now they wanted the humble community orchestra to grace their stage. Eliza gathered the orchestra members to share the news. Excitement buzzed through the air like electricity. This was their chance to show the world the beauty of their diversity, the strength of their unity, and the power of their music. The preparations began. Rehearsals ran late into the night, and the repertoire was carefully chosen. They would play classics, but also pieces composed by members of the orchestra, songs that told their stories, melodies that spoke of their lives. The day of the festival arrived. The orchestra traveled to the venue, a grand concert hall with velvet seats and crystal chandeliers. The musicians dressed in their finest, not in uniform, but in attire that represented their individuality. As they took the stage, a hush fell over the audience. Eliza raised her baton, and with a deep breath, she signaled the start. The music soared, a symphony of life that echoed through the hall. It was a celebration of authenticity, a declaration of identity, and a testament to the human spirit. The audience was spellbound. They witnessed not just a performance, but a story, a narrative of overcoming, of embracing, and of becoming. When the final note faded, the silence was profound, followed by a thunderous standing ovation. Eliza and her orchestra took a bow, their hearts full. They had touched the souls of those who listened, and in return, their own souls were uplifted. But the story doesn't end there. The festival was just the beginning. The orchestra continued to play, to inspire, and to grow. They became a symbol of hope, a reminder that in a world of pretense, there is a place for the real, the genuine, and the true. And Eliza, once the fake rich woman, had become the maestro of a symphony that would play on for generations to come. The music festival had been a triumph, but Eliza knew that the orchestra's impact extended far beyond that single performance. They returned home, their hearts still echoing with the applause, but their minds focused on what lay ahead. Eliza sat in her small apartment, surrounded by sheet music and memories. The community orchestra had become a family, a diverse, passionate, and slightly chaotic family.
They laughed together, argued about tempo, and shared stories over cups of tea. Lily, now a seasoned violinist, had dreams of composing her own concerto. The retired cellist, Mr. Patel, had started teaching music to underprivileged children. And the drummer, Jake, had formed a band that blended classical melodies with rock beats. But Eliza's greatest joy came from the new faces, the young children who joined the orchestra. They held tiny violins, their eyes wide with wonder. Eliza remembered her own beginnings, the borrowed instrument, the tentative notes, and the dream that had carried her forward. The orchestra's rehearsals continued, and Eliza noticed something magical. The music wasn't just about playing notes, it was about creating connections. The flutist, Maria, shared stories of her homeland in Spain. The clarinetist, Raj, taught everyone a traditional Indian raga, and the pianist, Emily, composed a piece inspired by the city's bustling streets. Eliza's blog had evolved too. It was no longer just her voice, it was a chorus of voices. Lily wrote about the thrill of performing, Mr. Patel shared memories of his youth, and Jake penned lyrics that spoke of resilience and hope. One day, as Eliza sat by the window, watching the rain tap against the glass, she received an unexpected letter. It was from Mrs. Whitmore, the philanthropist who had sponsored the scholarship. She wrote, "Dear Eliza, your orchestra's impact has reached beyond our city. People are talking about the magic you've created, the way music transcends boundaries and heals hearts. I want to offer you something, a chance to take your orchestra on a world tour. Imagine playing in grand concert halls, ancient amphitheaters, and bustling squares. Imagine sharing your story with people who have never heard of the fake rich woman or the maestro. Eliza, your legacy is unfolding. And it's time to write the next chapter." Eliza read the letter again, her hands trembling. The world tour was a dream, a symphony of possibility. But it also meant leaving behind the familiar streets, the cozy cafe, and the park where she had first met Lily. She gathered the orchestra members. Their eyes widened as she shared the news. Lily's fingers danced across her violin, and Mr. Patel's eyes sparkled. Jake tapped out a rhythm on the table, and Emily hummed a new melody. "We'll go," Eliza declared. "We'll take our music to every corner of the world. And we'll remind people that authenticity is the greatest treasure." And the orchestra packed their instruments, their hopes, and their stories. They boarded planes, trains, and buses, their hearts beating in unison. Eliza stood at the airport, her violin case by her side, and whispered, "Thank you, Mr. Harrison." As they played in distant lands, Eliza realized that the symphony of life was more intricate than any composition. It was made up of laughter, tears, and shared dreams. And as long as they played together, their legacy would resonate through time, a melody of courage, connection, and authenticity. And there, my friend, is where I'll leave Eliza's story, for now. But remember, the symphony continues, and the notes are waiting to be played.